DSC's Trailing the Hunter's Moon is presented by DSC, Conservation, Education, and Protecting Hunters' Rights. Ruger, rugged, reliable firearms. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Trijicon, brilliant aiming solutions. Wildlife Systems, serving hunters and landowners since 1987.
That's what whitetail deer do, Ted. That's what they do best.
Yeah, right there's where they were.
Yeah.
Right there.
First morning of deer season here in Texas. And I'm hunting with Wildlife Systems here in San Angelo, Texas, just west of San Angelo. And Ted and I've been started out in a deer stand this morning, very typical traditional Texas style hunt. Decided to get up on the top of some of these ridges and just overlook some of these bowls, some of these little draws, little spot and stalk style hunting, which I love to do in Texas. And in this area of Texas, you can do that. Kind of stay on the higher ground and overlook the bottoms, the valleys, plus look across to the other ridges. And we happened to drive up over a ridge and spotted some deer pretty good ways off, so we decided to get out of the truck and see if we could get a little closer and get a better look at them. That's a perfect spot, Ted. Scrape right here, rub there, rubs right over there. In fact, this is the second definite scrape we've seen. That I think we're early. I think it's another week or two off.
It's just a little early. They're not really ready to fire up yet.
No, but what an ideal spot.
Oh, it's just perfect. Everything's just right.
It's still fun to get out there though and bang the horns together and listen to the sound.
You never know until you try.
You just never know when something's going to just run over you.
Exactly. When it happens, it's quick.
We've moved to the north end of the ranch. We saw quite a bit of deer sign coming in here. The deer were starting to be up and moving. We just got set up in here. We haven't been here 5 minutes and we've already got deer moving around the stand, so that's a good sign. Wind's blowing a little bit this afternoon, but I suspect it'll lay down as we get closer to sunset. These deer here in West Texas are just on the verge of kicking off into the rut, I think.
This segment of DSC's Trailing the Hunter's Moon is brought to you by Double Nickel Taxidermy.
An exciting afternoon sit that was. We were covered up in deer. I lost count of how many bucks we saw. We saw well over 2 dozen deer. That's what I love about Texas. A couple really good bucks in there. There were several mature deer in there. One really big 9, one really good 8, another really old 9. Several nice young 10 points and a nice young 6x5 and a good pile of does and fawns. I'd say the buck to doe ratio here on this place is right where it needs to be. But we're just about out of legal shooting lights, so unload the old Ruger and head back to camp for one of Wildlife Systems' good old home-cooked meals.
When I know the rut's fixing to kick off, I always go looking for, good deer sign. I'm at a water source here. It's a big cattle working ranch, so I've got water right here. And the wildlife will use the same water source as the domestic ranch animals. And right here at this water source is a series of rubs. All the bucks I've been seeing so far have all been together, which just tells me that they're not quite ready to do their thing. But this is a fresh rub, and there's a fresh rub right next to it, and another rub about 30 yards from that one. Tells me that there's a buck right here making this his territory. You find these types of areas and you will be successful if you put the time in. That's armadillo number 2. We just don't see these critters very often anymore. I mean, they're around. When I was a kid, I would see them all the time, and I've never ever seen one drink water, and so a perfect opportunity to catch one because they're not this easy to catch. There's another one just on the other side of the trough here walking through in the bush, but I'm fascinated with these little critters. They're truly prehistoric looking. Look at his little nose and his ears. They don't have great eyesight. This is a younger armadillo than the other one that the cameraman caught, but that was an easy catch. Letting him have a little drink of water.
This segment of DSC's Trailing the Hunter's Moon is brought to you by Ripcord Rescue Travel Insurance. We got your back.
Howdy, I'm Greg Simons with Wildlife Systems. For roughly 120 years, monies that are generated through hunting have served as the principal funding source for terrestrial wildlife conservation in this country. Research over the last several decades have showed that white-tailed deer are this country's most economically important wildlife species by a long shot. There is no close second. So whitetails are indeed our crown jewel of our funding source for conservation in this country. So it's very important that as we move forward, that we be mindful of protecting the broad long-term values of hunting's favorite son, white-tailed deer.
Like this spot. I like it. This location is good. Right, you can see a lot of country. There we go. Another buck. Okay. Another young buck. Just young little legs bull. Well, you know, Ted, it's a shame there's no deer on this ranch. It's pitiful. I'm never coming back. I've lost count on how many bucks right here. Yeah, I see it. It's got its head down. I can't tell what it is. He's not a giant, but he's heavy. He's heavy. Dark horn is a cool shape to him. Yeah. Good long brow tines to him. He kind of has that studly attitude, studly look to him. Coming back from the right again. Not the old deer, that's not the big deer. Here he comes. There he is. Look at the size of that deer, body-wise. I don't know. I mean, he's not a wide deer, but he's a 140-inch deer, don't you think? I think so. It's not, he's not wide, he's not very wide, but looks to me maybe 4-year-old. Yeah, what's hard for me is a deer like that. That could be a 160-inch deer next year. If he's a 4-year-old and he has a good year. Yes, sir.
DSC's Trailing the Hunter's Moon is also brought to you by Sitka, Kenetrek, boots for the trail less traveled, Bino Gear, binocular accessories you've got to have, MB Ranch King blinds, built in pursuit of perfection, Double Nickel Taxidermy, and by Ripcord Rescue Travel Insurance. We got your back.
For the afternoon hunt. Hope that already pulling up. No riggers on safe. We've come back to a blind that we've already sat in and saw numerous mature bucks in that I already passed. Hunted some other areas of the ranch and decided to come back to this area because there was just too much movement on it the other day in the afternoon. It's windier this afternoon though, and warmer. Temperature has warmed up. But I feel really good about it. Ted feels really good about it. Actually coming into here, we spooked. Looked like it'd be about half a dozen deer out of this area already, but we'll see what happens. Let's make this happen tonight. Just when you think you figure him out, they'll fool you. I think it's him. Let's make sure it's him. I can't get him right there. Yeah, that's him. That's the 8-point again. Is he down?
He's down.
You sure?
Yeah, I saw him move.
That stresses me out when it takes like it's time there, Ted. I'm just gonna put one in it just in case, but thank you, sir.
Good job.
Let's go see what we got. Should just be down up here about another 35 yards or so. That's a dead buck. Right there, buddy. Look at that. That's a beautiful deer. Come on around here, Ted. You were part of this as much as anybody. You've been carting me around this 23,000 acres for a few days.
And we have seen, look how long that beam is, you know? My heart's still fluttering, but you know, just pounding right now. I love him. I love him.
Good job. Great.
I'd love to get some really good pictures of him before we run out of daylight. I can't thank you enough.